working with these two foundations was really spectacular just because of the amount of, I think, work that they themselves put in and their teams put in to make everything possible. So the idea really today was for you all to hear from them directly rather than from us about what it really takes to build a data driven organization, no matter how large or small you are. So I think you'll hear more about their organizations and their work. But just to give you context, Dakshayani has been working in the space of Indian traditional music art forms and exposure for children from marginalized communities since 2016. Revathi has been working with nomadic tribes and enabling education, nutrition, protection for children in Tamil Nadu. We're going to start with having them present their work to you. Revathi, over to you to maybe kick us off and talk about your journey in being data driven.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. I'm here to share our journey. As Manije introduced me, I'm Revathi Radhakrishnan. I'm founder of Vanavil Trust. I'm joining you all from Nagapattinam, the small coastal town in rural Tamil Nadu. And we work with the nomadic tribal communities on education primarily, but working with the complexity of change that we just saw, that trying to work with the nomadic tribal communities requires multiple interventions. And for a long time, I was one of those people because we work out of a small town villages and working on a remote geography and a complex issue that requires a lot of introduction, explanation to anybody that we talk to. And also as an organization that believes in the relationship between people, to create change, we do think relationships are very fundamental. We always thought tech and data are something that's not our immediate allies. We always, initially at least, I used to be one of those people who thought that this is something that's not for us, and it's difficult for us to go there. So I'm really thankful to Goalkeep because they changed this block that I had, and it's made our life so much better, and it's made our work so much better, and it's made us really it's almost like removing something in front of our eyes. So how we went in is with all these questions. I just attended a presentation Goalkeep did at the Rebuild India conclave by Dasra, and after that we did I was convinced that maybe there is something here, but we were not sure how. And I also had all those difficulties in front of me, and also all the conversation that you had inside your head. And we are in this village and we are working with this very, very marginalized community. And how are we going to do this? And we started the conversation with Goalkeep with all the questions. I think initial meetings were more about like all the skepticism that was being discussed. And as many of you are also trying to would have the same experiences, I think. When you work in a grassroots level issue, even though the issue is very well known and it's worked upon by many others like education or nutrition, working with the nomadic tribal communities, we are doing multiple interventions to enable education. And hence, we had many data, but not organized data, like scattered we had a lot of data, and our resources were really limited. So these conversations with Goalkeep made us, they're tireless in having these conversations with you. And we kept discussing what started as trying to find a way to measure what we are doing through our after school program, which is to create access to quality education to all the nomadic tribal children. We're working in 5 districts of Tamil Nadu, and we're planning to scale. We wanted to scale to all over Tamil Nadu, and that's where we started. But trying to find out the metrics, we had clarity about our program, or so we thought, but the clarity of what one thing, if we start measuring, we will be able to assess or understand the whole program, came through our many conversations. So what started as an overall program evaluation centered upon one question, where we decided that we will monitor student attendance. So, so that's where we work, and we had this long discussion. We wanted to evaluate our program, and we chose the program that we wanted to scale. And what to measure, we had multiple things. Like, we had a long list, but through many conversations, we focused and came upon one thing of tracking the attendance of the child to our after school center, but also to the school. And this was very, very heartbreaking, because initially I was very skeptic about that, although I was not sure. But doing that discussion, it really helped us. And we realized, because we work with the nomadic tribal children who are not enrolled as much as other communities, and who are also prone to dropping out more than any average rural student themselves. And finding this thing was a big breakthrough for us. And it sounds very simple, but I will show that how this really helped us. And when Bhumika and Aditya and everybody came afterwards to Vanavil, they also spoke to all our team, and then everybody rallied behind this. And then we built this after school centers monitoring evaluation MEL program in our sense, but it's actually an attendance database, and it's the simplest data, but we were able to define what is the biggest challenge for a nomadic tribal child, which is they're not able to access schools, and there are many problems for that. And just tracking this one crucial thing, which seems so simple and it's an everyday thing, and that became our primary metric. And then Bhumika, Aditya, everybody and the team of Goalkeep, they built this dashboard, which is very I can't say it's very simple, but it's very simple for us to use. And they, I think, did a lot of work at the back end, and they developed this. And the data entry, we had to train our staff. That also, they helped us in training our staff. And we started doing this every day. Like, we implemented this last year, November. And from then onwards, the attendance to our centers and the attendance to the schools are being entered by our after-school teachers, who are primarily 70% of them are from the nomadic communities only. The others are also from the nearby proximate communities. And they have been entering this, and we have been able to review our program weekly, monthly. How we do that is one thing. But what has happened is, we realized even in December, January, even in the initial stages of this process, we had a monthly meeting. And we were thinking that we are only settling in. It's a new tech thing. It's a new data analysis thing. So it will take some more time for us to get used to this. So one of our coordinators, Arivaragan, he just not randomly, in his sharing, he just shared that he put 3 children back into school that month. 2 from the Trichy Nagamangalam Center, 1 from the Thuravikadu Center, mainly because of the Goalkeep dashboard. Because he said, I'm able to access it immediately. So we put those 3 children back, and he was very, very happy. And it really helped them. And that we felt was like a big ownership, and immediately then everybody wanted to do that. And this is not at a time when we were expecting results from it. We were thinking we are settling in. So last year, Vanavil has put back 36 dropout children back into school. And that's a very big task for us. And doing this dashboard has been really, really helpful for us. And what it has also meant is, every year we do educational support, monitoring enrollment, preventing dropout, and all this. But also we're trying to build relationship to the public schools that these children are studying in, because as a community that is stigmatized, parents going to the school, the relationship is also a bit skewed. It's one of our very intangible goals, But why I wanted to mention is, tangibly there are so many impacts. We put the children back. Our team feels really that they're able to see their own work, and they're able to see how it's happening. But our relationship with the public schools has improved. This year, when we held the annual days in our centers, all the government school teachers came to the hamlets of the nomadic tribal children, and it's a very big shift for us. And the community felt so good about it, because these are government school teachers, and they have come to their village for the first time, almost, I think. And that was a brilliant thing. So even though we started as a simple metric, we are able to capture complex things. I still believe that change is complex, but there are ways to measure it with clarity and which are in a simple way, because this is how a child who's not attended school for more than 4 days, what are the reasons? This happened in the process actually. And so this is not something we knew it, like we used to have know it in our heads, but we never documented this. And documenting why any child has not gone to school for 4 days, it's various reasons that we have listed, and those are this. So we took a simple metric with it's a clear thing, but we are also able to track many complex things through that, which can lead to other work, and also the relationship part, which is never an expectation. We don't think that the data and tech can help us to understand or improve relationships, but in our experience, we have a very strong evidence that this happened. And one more thing that's happened to us because of this change that we took is we also, skills is still a problem. I won't say it is not a problem, because not many people in rural India and grassroots organizers are educated to a certain level or in certain institutions to have free acts. I mean, they're not as comfortable as some other sections of the population. But we have seen that this whole interest towards tech and their confidence in being able to use this has really improved in this last 10 months, I would say. And we've had many training sessions. We had to run clinics to help people, especially because it's a Google Sheet based thing, and many of them are working from their phones. But this has also given us a window to upskill our staff on technological aspects, and there's a lot of interest amongst our team. So these are all the impact that we've seen. So what I think I've covered most of this in what I said already. I think the best pointers I can give you as somebody who's used it and who's also like a beginner only. We really started small and involve your team from the beginning. Goalkeep also insists that always they want the whole team on board. But from our side also, if we involve the team, even if we don't think they can get it like in the next 10 minutes also, if you involve the team, it's really fruitful. And I think taking complex systems, from my experience, of course, it could be different for others. For organizations like ours, I think taking a simple thing and doing it consistently can show us immense change and immense analysis and insight, rather than doing a very big system. And we have to build trust. We use this to build trust with all our stakeholders, and we have to be open to changes that they will suggest, be it Goalkeep or Vanavil or the team that uses or other people who access it. We have to be open. So those are the small pointers I have. Next slide. So our journey continues, and we are currently doing this many conversations and finding that one question. We're trying to do an academic. We are trying to build a dashboard or a monitoring system for the tracking academic progress. In working with a very marginalized community, where education, as we understand, will provide a sense of belonging, a sense of their culture, and also learning outcomes, FLN, and socio-emotional learning. And and it's also helped us to come up with really interesting research insights, the dashboard, because it shows us more data, more organized data to talk some of the things that we knew intuitively. Now we are data back to even go and present. Now we can probably write articles and more. Those are the things we are looking at. And ultimately, I think even though much of it happens in a phone, in a computer and all that, we are doing education in connection to the children, and we see how this dashboard has really helped us to keep the child at the center, because the education that we believe in, the child-centric one, where the child is able to decide. And here, I think also the primary thing we're measuring is whether the child is motivated and to attend the school, happy to be there, healthy to be there, the family is protected to send the child to school. And keeping the child at the center has been our primary goal. And I have to tell that I've become a not an I don't know if I should call myself an evangelist, but I really think people should take this up earlier than later, because it helps us in many levels. One, at the program level, if you're designing a new program and you're starting with this, that's really good. But we went on, we went on board after like 18, 19 years of existence. But even then, it really helps you to understand your program better, present your data to us, to our children also. We're able to talk about absenteeism better. To our parents, in the parents meeting, we're able to talk with clear numbers and clear with proper lists. And to the school, every month we go and we share this data, which is what built that relationship, because they are also struggling to keep the children in school, and they see that we are coming with clear information. So that has improved our relationship with the school. And the school is also proactively helping us to get the children back to school. And last but not the least at all, because that's one of the biggest hurdles everybody said in the Menti poll, it has helped us with approaching funders, and it has really helped us to explain the work to funders. Even one funder who's not actually involved with this project, but another project, but we just shared this during a general organization presentation, and they were really interested and impressed by the quality of the data that we are able to give. The general trend we were able to say even before, but how complex and rich this presentation, this analysis has really helped us to convince funders of this program and other programs as well. It's what I've said. For us, it takes 15 minutes extra to do the attendance on the phone, like on the Google Sheet, like to create for a dashboard, apart from putting it in the physical attendance. And we started with one question. We spend 15 minutes every day, and we probably spend 2 hours an hour every week to review, an hour every month to review. And now we have the whole team is behind this. They want us to do dashboards for all our projects, and we are really convinced. More than everything, I think we're really convinced that even complex remote remote geographies, complex problems, small organizations, not so tech savvy teams can leverage data and technology and show the change that we're doing in the nooks and corners of this country to everyone, like here and like everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Revathi. I myself have a lot of questions to ask you, I think. At the end of almost, I don't know, 4-6 months of knowing Revathi, at one point she said, I'm not tech savvy. And I couldn't believe that she had said that after all the work that she had put in. But I think it was really nice to hear about how you're talking about this in the context of relationships and keeping the child at the center and not as numbers that you need to showcase. So it's like really super cool to hear. Dakshayani, over to you. Let's hear your journey.
But basically, I and Mandar, my husband, who's also the co-founder of Baithak Foundation, we started Baithak in 2016, and we are ourselves musicians. And the idea for us was simple: to take the music that we love to more children. And it started with that simple idea. It grew up to become a program, a model in some sense, which we call is the APT project, APT, Anubhav, Parichay and Talim. It's basically an approach in a way. So we start off with experiences of Indian traditional music and dance. We move towards more embodied experiences, so which are workshops. So concerts, workshops, and then we do Talim, which is basically once a week music clubs, which run in mostly in government schools or community centers that we work with. So that's the program that we have. And I'm very sure that by listening to the program and the description itself, you must have guessed that impact measurement and outcome measurement is quite a bit of a nightmare for Baithak, because everything in some sense is intangible. What does music do to a child? Why is it critical? Why is it important? How do we measure? Is it suddenly now going to make children good at maths? So those are all kinds of questions that you yourself have, honestly, and you also, people who are working with you, your team and your funders and the larger community also has these questions, and they're very valid and important questions. So at Baithak, when we started off the program, we said that okay, what we will do is, and I completely relate with what Revathi mentioned, that keeping the child at the center and keeping the child's joy at the center has always been very important for Baithak. So our vision in some sense was that, yes, we have to take music to children, but it has to be taken in a way where children experience that joy, and that is very central to us. The other outcomes are just allied outcomes. They're all good to have, but if they're happy in those sessions, that's the most important thing for us. So we did have a clear vision. And that meant that, of course, we experimented with the model, and we had a model like the apt project. But that does not always, like, having a clear vision does not always mean that, that's going to be good enough in a way. We felt that there were certain systems that were not present, and I think that was the juncture in some sense where Goalkeep came in to help us set up a system. So for instance, I can share that, like, we had some 10 Google forms, and every artist had to fill an observation form, and our coordinators were filling many forms. Basically, there were just too many forms and too many Excel sheets to look at. So not that we were not tracking data in that sense, but we were just doing too many things in some sense. We also had no idea of what was the benchmark for us, like what was the bare minimum for us and what was then excellence in some sense. Again, I think when we all work in the field and at grassroots, we do have an understanding of it, but there isn't really an articulation many times, and that articulation, which especially you need to share with the team, you need to hear from them, so that doesn't necessarily happen. And also, which means that whose responsibility is it to make the program better? So in some sense, we can obviously, nobody is, I mean, at least at Baithak, we're not satisfied with what we're doing. We all want to get better. So if that's the case, then where are we going to get better? How are we going to get better? What's going to tell us to get better? So those were some of the things that system needed. And Bhumika was working with us quite intensely on this project. I think what she helped us understand was, in some sense, to pick and choose what we really need. So we had this whole key questions discussion initially in this process, and we identified a few things that we really wanted to track, which were in some sense non-negotiable. And then we also had obviously a few things that which would be maybe good to have. And I think, again, like, the process that the Goalkeep team has is excellent, because they talk to stakeholders, not just to you as the founder or to your team, but they, also spoke with one of our funders and a couple of artists. And so it's just helpful when somebody else talks to your stakeholders and tries understanding what's important. So that was important, and that process was important for Baithak. And then really thinking of what do we want to look at, why do we want to look at, and then why it matters, like establishing that sort of full link between various data points. So what were those seeds basically, and then eventually what are the insights that we are going to harvest in some sense. So that there was a good linkage, there was a clear understanding of that through the process. And what we ended up doing in some sense was, like, basically designing a garden. And when I feel when you design a garden, in some sense, the process in a way is never complete, right? Like, it's a garden that can get better. So that's also another thing, like, I think until the point when we were, when we were engaged, before we had engaged with Goalkeep, I think what we had in mind was that once we have a system, once we have a set of these seeds planted and so on, that was the only harvest that we were going to get. So I think what was good to understand is that there are a few things that you plant now, but there are a few that you can plant later. There are cycles that you can establish, and then you can change. You can completely sort of start looking at something different as well. So what it helped us realize that it's really like an ecosystem. uh, I mean, anything related to data in that sense and drawing insights on impact is about developing that ecosystem within the organization as well. So that was like a big sort of highlight, I think I would say, for us. Um And I think another shout out for the Goalkeep team particularly is that uh, they did understand the complexity of the work and didn't dumb that down and make it simplistic. So the process or the system that is set up in some sense is simple to use, but that does not mean that it strips down the organization and of the complexity that it deals with. So which was really critical, because we all know that we I mean we are dealing with complex problems and lots of relationships and interrelationships and cannot get over that complexity. So, and I think in some sense the journey or the hopping has been from overwhelming to being a little organized, then making sense of it, and then slowly now I think the system that we are using, we're quite using it diligently at Baithak, and so now things are hopefully slowly becoming more intuitive. And at this point I also want to specifically mention that better team has really owned it up. At the end of the day, like Revathi said, it is the team, including you, of course. I mean, whoever is would be the founder or whoever is leading it, but including you, it is always going to be the team. And at the end of the day, they need to feel that whatever data they are collecting and whatever system has been put in place, it's really working, it's really helping them make those better decisions, course correct, or just identify where there was a mistake or a lapse that's happened. So that's very important, and I think here is where your team plays a huge role. And not that at Baithak also we didn't necessarily have people who are in that sense tech savvy. We obviously all use computers, and we all access digital tools, but even little simple things like you can't put like a have a capital A somewhere and a small a somewhere, or you can't have a space after a name that you write. These are very little things, but that hygiene is very important to just even let that dashboard work for you. So we have the team who has taken the responsibility for it, and I think here again is where even uh, even the Goalkeep team in some sense has supported us. So we initially had worked with the team for about 3-4 months on the project itself of creating the dashboard. Yeah, so this is one of the sheets, for instance, on our dashboard. So as I said, like Anubhav and Parichai, these are once a month sessions, so concerts and workshops that happen, and there are there are coordinators and there are various different partners basically. So we can have a coordinator wise view also. And what you see is, for instance, if you see this first graph, you see like a month wise distribution of how many sessions have been executed. So at one glance here you can see how many have been planned and executed. So for instance, now in August you already have closer to 50 sessions which are planned, but then, or yeah, you see 54 they are planned, but you only have 16 as of now which are executed. So you can actually quickly understand where you are. Also you can set targets, like for instance this year Baithak is going to work with at least 110 schools. Now when you have that kind of volume with, in a way, a small team, we have 5 coordinators, you are actually able to set targets as well, like okay, in the first quarter we have to be able to achieve we have to execute so many number of sessions, only then will we be able to achieve that X other number. Then if you see, we also, like for instance in Anubhav particularly, we focus on diversity of art forms. Now when we look at a chart like this, we are able to see that okay, till now what have we focused on. If we and if there are say for instance you see right now like vocal is really 0% or pakvaj is 0%, you also know that oh okay, now so these are the next sessions that you have to plan. So we've done enough of dance and sound box and all of that, now we have to move to the other ones. So you can maintain like that diversity sort of, that you would want. You can see the upcoming sessions. So if I want to like really just quickly know what are the sessions happening next week and so on, one can quickly go and check what sessions are happening, where they are happening, who's the coordinator, who's the artist. We can see all of that, you know and this is also very interesting actually, like well coordinated. I'll show you this last graph actually, because this makes it more actionable in some sense. So what is a well coordinated session, what's the benchmark for that? And then you see that okay, in this month this is how it looks, in this month this is how it looks. So you can then, and what happens is, because then you can have conversations based on this, that say for instance, if well coordinated sessions, like the number is, and this is really the benchmark, so if it, even if it is 94, there's going to be obviously a conversation around it, that okay, then why, what happened. You can actually go back and track, okay, which schools, where was a concern, was it coordinator related, was it artist related concern, or was it a school coordination administration related concern that we had, because of which the overall quality of the session, or it was not coordinated well. So you can figure that out in a way. So there are obviously many other metrics, but what I really want to share is that it is actually, at the end of the day, it is the team, and it is everybody in the team who, when they own up this process, only then it really works. So in our team, I'm guessing they are on the call, Atharva and Ambarish, they have been the people who have, oh sorry, am I sharing the wrong, no, this one, yeah. So they've been the one who've been maintaining like this sessions tracker sheet, and what's happening where, who's doing what. I mean, Ambarish is behind almost everyone to say, okay, this is not working, that formula is not working. He's also worked with the team to help them understand, like, we have the metric info, but then what does that metric info mean? How does the dashboard really sort of take all of that data? What are the calculations? So Ambarish has actually explained that to the team, that see, this is how it is drawing. So from this sheet it is going to take this, from this feedback form it's going to take this. And you see, this is one of the biggest things. I mean, this is something that's been very helpful for us. Actually, I'll go towards the end. But this is a sheet where the coordinators usually now plan their sessions. So you will see that they can actually, they actually actively use, you will see that things are empty. So once they get done, they will put whatever needs to be put there, so they can. So this sheet is almost open every day basically, and maintained well. So but it's really to the team that who does all of this. And yeah, so yeah, that's all there is from my end. But thank you, it was wonderful to speak about this.
Thank you so much, Dakshayani. And what a beautiful presentation. I'm going to start us off with like a couple of questions, and really for everybody in the audience, if there are specific questions that you have for the two of them in terms of what it took, what are some decisions they had to make, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure that we cover them today. I think, thinking of, like, you both touched upon two stakeholders, one being your team. Both of you have extremely small teams, and like you said, not particularly tech savvy in that sense, but with these multiple sheets, you've managed to keep it going. So I think my first question is around the team. I think Revathi, you mentioned something about rallying the team around, and building that ownership. Dakshayani, you also said, not mine, teams. How did that happen for you all? Because it didn't happen by accident. And what are you all doing to sustain these systems as you go forward? Maybe Revathi, you want to start?
Yeah. So, couple of things. I think the way you designed it, and in that, I think Goalkeep has a major thing, because sometimes people design systems that are really, the things that it has to do has to be complex, but it can be made in an accessible way. So having this discussion with the team, involving them in the question and what is it that they want to monitor, and talking to everybody involved, and then creating a system that's simple, that's not too many things, and very clear, the clarity, that helps a lot. The second thing, of course, what helps with the team is if they can see the work, like what is it doing, the benefit of this whole thing. If the team are able to see it, and then it is very easy, like you don't have to convince and all. Then the problem is only about people who are not able to access, people who don't have, there are material problems that we still have to firefight. But the main part for us was the moment they are able to see and they are able to take the child back to the school, and then they get appreciated. Like it becomes like getting a child back to school is a big thing in the organization, and they are able to see that, and that is what helped. And the coordinator and our manager Mitra and all our coordinators felt so happy, because otherwise they were like constantly calling and checking this. It becomes like it's a foolproof way. That is how I think we help. What really needed more time is that we have to take it as an important part and spend some time in clarifying doubts, helping people. Some people still have difficulties. We are helping them in various ways, hand holding and holding calls for them. So that is the only. Those are the things that I can think.
Yeah. I think one is that definitely I also agree that just the whole process, whatever the first 3-4 months that we worked, with Goalkeep, I think that process itself was wonderful because it drew the team in this whole exercise. It was not just some consultant working on some unrelated and distant problem. It was it was alive for the team basically. So that was very helpful. One. The other is also, I think, just making it part of like your organism in some sense. It is something that you do like daily, weekly. So for instance, in Baithak there is now Atharva looks at the dashboard on a weekly basis, and he is to look at basically what's going wrong, is everything getting reflected correctly, are the right number of sessions being seen, and so on. So it's actually officially in a way a part of his responsibility to look at it also. So we've also embedded in his role itself. So that is one, so that he's working on it. The other is also just, I think, it's really a culture thing, when you have everybody really using it, and also things like, you also have to use that system that well. For instance, when I can see the dashboard, I can't go to a team member and ask, oh, who is performing tomorrow or what sessions are pending. I shouldn't be doing that as well, right? Like I should first access the dashboard, see it there. If it's not reflecting, then I can go and check and see why it is so, and so on. So it's just basically, yeah, just keeping just using it, constantly using it. And then the team obviously notices, like, there's a benefit. You have everything in one sheet and the life is easy a little bit because of that.
As founders, I know like how difficult it is to have all these different priorities, right? You have donors and funders and programs and hiring and all of that. Yeah. How do you decide to make time for something like this in the midst of all of that? I know it's sounding like it was worth it, but how did you first make that decision to even get started?
I think I'll go. It's a little quick answer for me. It was a little overwhelming, first of all, whatever we had. So that is one. The other is that I think we chose a strategic time in the year. So we also knew that March, I mean, March is a little busy, but it's still busy only for, say, me, Mandar, and maybe one or two other people. But the rest of the team who's working in school, it's easy on them. So March, April, May are good times to invest in something like this if you are working with a school or schools. So that was, I'm very sure if we had done this in June, July, we would have not been able to do it, because there would have just been no bandwidth to execute any of this, or even to get together for a meeting and so on. So I think just strategically, even thinking about that in the year, what's the right time for you to engage in something like this. And honestly, yeah, it was really overwhelming. There are too many things, too many sheets to look at, and it was very difficult to induct new employees. You do need a system. It can't all be in somebody's head. It has to also be out there for everybody else to see.
For us, it was the biggest question in our head was also funding. One was a conceptual understanding of, as I said, my skepticism to do this work, to change this. Do we need all this? That I think was helped. Mainly two things I will say: unrestricted funding and exposure we got. SVP Sherry is here. Sherry has been constantly pushing many of us towards this. And the Dasra Rebuild fund that I'm part of, they held that workshop, and it was like a speed dating, which is where I met Swapnil, and who was presenting Goalkeep's work. For me, I think the fact that there was unrestricted funding, and there were unrestricted funding that was being given to non-programmatic needs, that really gave us that space, and it has helped us tremendously. And that's very key, I think, to be part of these spaces, and that has really changed it's been a big game changer for us.
There was a question that came in a little earlier. Dakshayani, Revathi, if you all could share a little. I think it's a valid problem that you all mentioned. It's just the problem of plenty. So how do you avoid information overload on these dashboards? So was there something that was done? Is there something that's being done to prevent it from being too much on the dashboard?
So for us, I think we have to, the time that we spend in designing it is very important. And the way Goalkeep does it, they do spend a lot of time. So it's not generically, see, when we went for an after school dashboard, after school is not a new invention, right? Like millions of people are doing, I mean, at least thousands of people are doing it. So we did not start with a big thing. We chose the question and then we went ahead and did that. We do not collect unnecessary data. I think to have clarity and stick to what you want to collect, initially. Like we are not even collecting all the data that we need. We are going to look at the academic section next. So I think the key thing is to really know what you want to collect and only collect that, because it is an investment of time, energy, and resources and all that. And you want it, you also don't want it to become redundant. We've used some made for like ready-made softwares earlier for MIS and all. The problem is that like you're answering 100 questions. There is only 30 questions are relevant to you, and 70 you just either enter, and then after a point people lose interest in those 70 first, and then they start losing interest in this 30 also. So I think the key thing is to pick the data that you want to collect, have a solid reason why you are collecting that and what is it going to show, and then collect that over a period of time so that you're able to see the change.
I think the only thing that I feel is for what worked for Baithak in some sense was that actually our dashboard, there's only one page in some sense which focuses on the impact sort of level of parameters. I think before that there are quite a few pages which focus more on the quality of the input, and I think that was one of the big things for us, because the only way to understand the impact of the work that we are doing or correlate it with the impact in some sense is the quality of the input. And I think just to have somebody honestly understand this relationship and see that, yes, I mean, that's a very important thing to capture. Honestly, nobody really cares about it, so I'll just say it out there that nobody really engages with the quality of your process. It's a tough one to engage with, so that's there. But what it does is that is what is most meaningful for the team. Actually, the impact is there obviously, but when we go on field we do see impact, so it's not that difficult for us to see. So what makes it valuable for the team is when they see that, oh my, like that process is getting also documented in some sense, and that is where they see most of the value. And that is also where you avoid too many elements in some sense, like what Revathi was saying. You really then are able to focus on, okay, these 3 things, 5 things, these are very important for me. As long as they get sorted, then the rest will be taken care of. So it does come about, with the clarity in some sense, as Revathi was talking about. But yeah, but that focus on process also in some sense helped us, I would say. It helped us avoid looking at the unnecessary in a way.
I know you've both spoken about this thing of, it's not so much the external. Yeah. It's what it's done for you and your team and being able to improve your program. However, there is an external and there is a donor. Yeah. So how has this been received by donors in your experience, and how has it helped you?
I think the answer for us is a little simple, because interestingly, we haven't seen a lot of donors engage with our dashboard. What they engage with is the storytelling that we are able to achieve through the dashboard. So they don't necessarily have to know, what system in that sense we are using. We of course tell them, but they never access or they never see in that sense, truly what they, whatever charts, let's say, and things that we are able to generate from the dashboard. And when there's a coordinator of a space who makes certain comments on that data, like, this is what I see, this is what I saw through the year, or this is what the teacher is saying. So there's a lot of qualitative data that's there, but I also have some quantitative data to see that there's a relation between that qualitative and quantitative data. So donors or whoever reads our reports, let's say, appreciates that it's not only qualitative and it's not only opinion and only observations, it's also quantitative stuff, but there are lots of stories along with it as well. So I think like a balance of that is something that donors have engaged with. But honestly, in our case, we have always, I mean, the donors who work with us, first of all, trust the organization and truly believe in the work. So that's how they end up funding us. So yeah, so that's how it has been for us.
So for us, we have had some really interesting experiences. So one is a foundational donor, and they were like, they thought this makes them understand the process so much more, like why the child is dropping out. We had like 7 reasons on that page that I showed, where it's health or like they travel with their parents to some other workplace, etc. So it explains the problem deeply and the process also more clearly. And something like attendance, it's like the big elephant. Like all of India talks about it, everybody is tracking it, and yet it's such a dense thing. It's such a simple thing, but yet analyzing it has been really difficult with public ME's data, UD's data, and we are able to do it in a very simple way. Like we're working with 1,500 children, and we are monitoring it every day, and we are able to say the results. So the clarity it sheds on the problem and the solution that we are doing was really appreciated by one foundational donor. And another CSR donor, what they like was that every week we are checking whether any child is going below 75%. How many children have less than 75% attendance? How many children have less than 80% attendance? And to show that the change in a year, generally attendance is about like, we put as a KPI, but it is for actual evidence of you running the class and student are attending. But now we are able to like really make that one simple small data much more complex and rich. And the change is like, we are able to show numerically, and that has really helped us to get some support also. One donor who been supporting us with certain 2 centers, 2 after school centers, is supporting another new center also from this year. And I think one of the main reasons is the fact that they're able to show this quantitative change also.
Just to add to that, since there are a couple of questions around the same theme, wanted to share with everyone just the process that both Baithak and Vanavil followed, going through basically these 6 steps. I think this is what both teams went through. And the main thing that happened first, which would be useful to highlight and may answer everyone's questions, is this first step, which is what Revathi was also mentioning, is everyone might have 100 questions that they want answered on the dashboard, but can we really prioritize what are the main ones that need to be answered for this team? And the typical process that we followed is to get the entire team to put this down. This is everything we want answered, but what will I do with it? And then as a group, as a team, can we prioritize that we can't have everything because we won't be able to act on it? So can we really figure out what are the most actionable metrics, most actionable key questions, and then can we work towards building for that? Because that is what's going to move the needle. And I think that's what, again, I'm sure it's a process, because at some point you may feel that, no, I now need to add this. And so you have to manage that. But I think that was the process to really say that what is really going to help us take action. It may not be all of these different things. I will just go to Sherry's question, and Manije, maybe you could also share a little bit on this, which I'll paraphrase a little. I think it's just on what are a couple of things that an NGO leader should think about or ask themselves to be able to gauge that, okay, this is the right time for me to really focus on NEL and really bring in support to invest in this.
I can speak a little bit from my own experience. I think when I started out working in the nonprofit space, I knew every child and I knew exactly what we were doing. I knew their history, their parents, all of it. But as the program grew and we did a better and better job, and there was a desire to reach more children, I think the question was, am I doing really the best I can for every single client that I work with? And I think as you scale up, and you will when you are a great program, that commitment to your clients is what should drive some of these decisions. When you're reaching that point which says, look, I don't know. Yeah, I go into a center, I feel it, but how do I make sure that I'm on top of it as my team grows? I think that is the first question I would ask myself. How do I give myself confidence that I'm delivering with quality? I think the other questions that I would ask myself is kind of, am I able to tell my story well? Uh, am I taking too long? Is it a very complicated message that I'm telling people? To even convince them that I'm doing a really good job, can I say this with, more brevity and simplicity? How can I kind of do that? And the last one would be, what will this enable for me and my team if I have these systems in place, right? Really, I think Revathi spoke about somebody taking joy in going and putting those kids back into the classroom. Dakshayani is saying, I want to deliver these sessions to high quality. The fact is that I'm not just getting an artist to come into my school. I'm working really hard to make sure it's high quality art. I'm working with artists in the way they engage with children. I want my team to focus on that. I don't want my team to really, focus on the wrong things. So I think, what can I do to enable my team to focus on my mission and the right things? I think if you can deliver on those three things, those would be good reasons to invest in MEL for me.
Thanks, Manije. Another question which I think, Manije, you could also take on first, and if Dakshayani, Revathi all want to add, that also be great. Just on doing pre and post evaluations. So what is that, I'm guessing, sample size number? How do you figure that out, that this is the right sample to take up while doing such an evaluation?
I would say that unless you are conducting a very rigorous evaluation, I wouldn't get too hung up on samples beyond convincing yourself that this is truly representative. So there are lots of, out there, you can have a sample size calculator. If you're a small size team and a relatively small program, there's no harm in trying to collect, baseline and line from everybody. But if you're, again, a larger team, ideally to stratify your sample in a way that it gives you enough depth of quality of information that you are, again, delivering on this mission for different groups and types of people, and being sensible about it. I think that balance between what is possible for my team and what is rigorous enough in terms of number of samples is something that, as founders or MEL people, you should be able to guide your organization on. I guess, do you both want to chime in? Because I know for Revathi, you all collect, it's attendance, ongoing every day. I think Dakshayani, you all have, baseline and line as well, but either if you want to.
I think it depends on the projects and the kind of intervention. And in education, I'm very wary. I'm a bit wary about the sample surveys, because every child, there are commonalities to children, but so it depends on the intervention. And I agree with what you say, because end of the day, if your question is clear, and I don't think the sample size alone can skew it beyond a point. But in education, I'm wary about sample surveys.
So Dakshayani, I want to add little for this question. So this is the Saurav asked in our team. So Vidyodaya running a project with science education and STEM curriculum, and each session we are doing some assessment. So we are observing, we are taking the student which type of questions they are asking, how they are thinking, like. So every student we can't do. So that's why we are doing some 4 to 8 children randomly, and we are observing each sessions, and we are collecting the 30 to 40 sessions in 1 year. So that's why we are thinking, is it when we are wrong, correct way or wrong?
So one of the things, for instance, that I don't know if this is going to answer your concern, Vinayak, but what we are doing at Baithak, for instance, is that we are, in terms of the outcomes that we are looking at high engagement and appreciation, because ours is a program that introduces music and dance to children. So what now the system has is, like the current system, the way it works is that it has a component of teacher feedback, then it has a component of coordinators personal observations, then it has a component where we're taking the child feedback for any session that's done, and then there's also artist feedback. So if we leave the coordinator out of this in some sense, and you look at these three main stakeholders, like the artists, the teachers, and the children, in some sense there is, so these are all the external stakeholders in the sense, so you get, if they're all saying the same thing in some sense, then you can be sure that, oh, it was a highly engaging session. And then you also have the coordinator who's also then observing and saying, oh yeah, it was. Or the coordinator could be very critical as well at times and say that, maybe they all agree, but I don't agree, I think this session can still be better. So there are and there can be instances like that as well. So I would say that it worked out well for us, but having triangulated the feedback from these external stakeholders and having somebody from your team also reflect on the process, they're all equally important. Like just because it's your team member, that doesn't mean that their observations are not valid. We should actually trust our team more in some sense. I feel sometimes we're very doubtful. I think unfortunately people are very doubtful of their own teams and their and teachers particularly, honestly. Very doubtful of teachers many times, but I think we should actually be more trusting, because they are there day in day out, they know better in a way. So
to cover the point of sampling, in this case we only use one or two sample, that is only one or two teacher or two children will answer these questions, not entire classes. So in case of sampling, it is limited, but it gives a complete perspective.
Thanks, Amrish.
The other thing I would add, really, as you all are even thinking about any kind of data collection, is to not think of it as data collection at all. And think of it really of what's in it for the stakeholder and what are you getting back to them. Yeah. So like even when Dakshayani is talking about, I want to make this program really, really powerful for children, that is the lens. The lens is never about like just what's in it for me. I think it has to be about what's in it for the other person.
Sorry, honestly, to also add to what you said, Manije, our baseline, midline, endline data, the cognitive abilities and so on that we are tracking, when we present a report or when we also do a presentation to a funder particularly, we just say that we are tracking. We don't even say that this is the impact of our work. We just actually end up saying that we are tracking this. We just want to see 3 years, 5 years down the line if something changes, or if there's a teacher who is saying something that children's concentration is improving. I see that. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard and see if the data is telling me something similar or the data is saying something different. So it's just for that. So actually we never, all the assessment in some sense, we don't even say that that's the impact. We say that entire process, the way it happens, is the impact.
Ask maybe last couple questions, but Manjeet is asking us about, have you all been able to use qualitative data? I think this, and since Dakshayani also talked about how a lot of the work is intangible. So one, how do you deal with that? And have you all been able to leverage qualitative data at all?
What has happened actually, because now we have the quantitative side of it a little bit sorted and we're not working through multiple sheets and so on. The coordinators in some sense can actually focus on looking at the qualitative stuff, because they know like the bare minimum is getting covered in feedback forms and so on. So what they can actually focus on is that they can focus on these conversations with children or focus on conversations with teachers. And then if there's something that comes up, like there are so many things that come up. For instance, we are working at a cluster level project in Satara, and while working with all these 35 schools, we've come to know that there are at least 4 or 5 teachers who've gone back and restarted their own music classes. Now, honestly, this is, nowhere in our parameters in the sense we are measuring any of this. This is not like a data point that we are looking out for. But because Atharva is able to obviously spend time with them, talk about them, he can fill his observation forms when he's coming back, just by sitting in the car. So he doesn't have to give like all of that time. He can actually have a conversation with the teacher and focus more on that. We've been able to gather things like that, and we do then try and share it as much as possible. Obviously, to be able to do that also, you have to still make that part of the culture of the team. So we're just setting that up in some sense in Baithak, that every month can we have stories from the ground, can we just all start putting those together, and what were the big highlight moments for us, can we share those with each other. Like our WhatsApp group is usually full of such sort of stories. We'll get pictures of children. Okay, look at this girl, how is she tapping, and look at these boys, and see how they play. So you will get all of those things. Now obviously we still have to really put a mechanism in place where that full circle happens. You receive a story, you share the story, and so on. That's not happening as much, but I think it's a part of that process.
I think these two are connected, quantitative data and qualitative data, because we are seeing that. I used to think that how will you record quality? That used to be one of my big questions. But I think finding the right metric can help you in actually recording and showing this qualitative data, because otherwise we really struggle. Apart from writing long stories, or I am able to talk about it, the qualitative data, really, how are we storing it? How are we showing it? Has always been it's a trick. I'm not saying it's not happening, but it was a tricky pathway. But with that, something as mundane as attendance. So there is a column where we are recording the visits that the teachers make to check how many students are absent. And there's a conversation that happens between our center, Vanavil's after school teacher, and the school teacher. And this conversation is being recorded, and that shows a lot of information, not just positives, this problem side also, there are insights, and what is happening and how this transformation is happening also, there is an insight. But how this is happening is through this simple I'm saying because it's child's attendance, but a very crucial simple data, which is enabling us to talk about many of the qualitative changes that we are bringing in, and the complexity of the problem that we are grappling with, and those things. I think we have to start seeing, at least personally, that's what I'm telling myself, that there is a connection between quantitative data and qualitative data. These are not independent entities. Sometimes in certain contexts, the relationship may not be like imminent, like it's very obviously visible, but ultimately, if there's a change from this place to this place, the quantitative data that supports this change that you draw from it, and the qualitative stuff, they're connected in some deeper ways, is our understanding. It's what we've learned actually.
Useful. I think as we close, maybe if you had, I know that you've already shared your top tips on what to do, but if this group had to go out tomorrow, what is the one thing that they should first do, Echo, for you?
If you have many questions, even critical questions, please ask them, because that's how I cleared my head and went ahead in this journey. Because there are many times we are stuck with, because of the work that we do, the places we are stuck in, the really complex nature of our jobs. Many times there are some questions which become opinions in our heads. I'm talking from my own personal experience here. So asking out the questions that you have is important. And second is to find a right person to do, because I don't spend some time on choosing the right way and right people to do it with. I would recommend Goalkeep, but of course you can look for others also, because that process is very important. Otherwise, all the energy that you spend, if you don't, it doesn't come up into something that's really viable and useful to you, then it could become another mental block for us. And ultimately, the final question would be if you want to grow and scale, and in our case, it's about reaching out to more children. And our mission is to get every nomadic tribal child in Tamil Nadu into school by 2030. If you want to scale, and if you want to grow, and if you want to show why this work that you're doing is needed today, and then that it is imperative that you take all your critical questions, positive doubts, to all the forums possible, ask them, get cleared, and choose a right person, right organization in this journey.
I completely agree with that. It's very important. I think what stood out for us in some sense was obviously just the need of making the program better, or just for surely knowing that the program is good in the first place. I think I find that is important to answer in some sense, or if we are asking questions around that, then you have to start that journey in some sense. So it's inevitable. So that is there. And the other is that definitely look for somebody who is not stripping down the complexity in the process. Things need to become simple, obviously, to use. Like, those systems have to feel very intuitive in that sense, but that doesn't mean that they will be simplistic in a way. Like, that is the real, I know this is a cliche really, but that is the crux. That anybody who feels that no, it's going to be linear and it's going to solve all your concerns and questions, that's not how it's going to be. It's just going to be a step towards solving some of those questions or problems. So just having a partner who really understands that, I think it'll help.
Thank you so much, both of you. I think it was super useful to hear, even knowing your story, to hear your story, I think has been great. I think the things that I'm taking away, one is this piece of the importance of the clarity and asking the questions. That seems to be at the core of, starting any process around like looking at data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. It's, are you asking the right question and the critical questions, and getting those answers before you move on to the next piece. I think the other thing I heard you both talk about a lot is the consistency of measurement, rather than doing too much, doing less, doing it consistently over and over again, getting better at it before you move on to taking that next step, rather than starting with too much and not knowing kind of what to do next. And the last one really is this being very true to your mission and things that give you joy, and don't let this become about like data, but really about furthering your work. So super to hear from both of you, and wish you very many successes in all that you do. It's fantastic to hear you discuss what you have done. For the team on the call, we do have a little form to get your feedback, which will be immensely valuable for all of us, Dakshayani, Revathi included. What are things that you would like to hear more about? What did you find insightful about this session? I think it's always a pleasure for us to talk about our work. But what do you want to hear would be really great to just get an insight into. So please, if you can take 3 minutes to fill in that form, that will be hugely helpful to us. Thank you very much for making this possible, both of you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you to Goalkeep team and Revathi, and it is we've not met at all, but just listening to her, it feels so connected in some sense. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you very much. This was a great learning experience for me. Thank you.